Looking at our world from a theological perspective. This is the Theology Central Podcast, making theology central.
Good afternoon, everyone. It is Wednesday, July the 14th, 2021. It is currently 2018. No, it is currently 2:18 p.m. Central Time, and I'm coming to you live from the sanctuary of Victory Baptist Church, located right here in Ovalo, Texas. And I apologize for that rough start. Yes, we are not off to a great start when I mess up the date, when I mess up the time, when I mess up the year, when I mess up the introduction. You know what? So let's just do this again. Pretend that you just hit play. Pretend that you just hit play, all right? Good afternoon, everyone. It is Wednesday, July the 14th, 2021. It is currently 2:19 p.m. Central Time, and I'm coming to you live from the sanctuary of Victory Baptist Church, located right here in Ovalo, Texas. There. Yay! Does that change everything? Does that make you feel better about your choice to tune in? Do you feel better now? Or are you like, okay, now I feel better. That was a professional introduction. I feel better about my choice. So I'm going to continue to listen because he corrected his introduction. You probably don't care either way. Probably most of you. It probably bothers you and irritates you that every time you hit play, you hear a very similar introduction. But as I've stated before, there is a reason why I do that, because I like when people listen, they know exactly the date, they know the day, they know the year, they know the time when that episode was produced, so it places it in a historical context, and I like them to know from where the episode originated from. So I like to do that. You probably don't care, but I do care, right? Whenever I go back and listen to one of my older broadcasts, I for me personally, I like, that was 2020. Oh, man, that was August. Okay. All right. Okay. And so when I make references to things, it all makes perfect sense. So many times I'll listen to something, a sermon or something. I'll be like, wait a minute. So what are they referring to there? What are they? And I don't have the historical context. And I'm always like, I wonder what year that was preached. I wonder. And sometimes I can figure it out. Sometimes I think I figured it out. And it's like, no, that's not the year it was preached. That's the year it was posted. And you're like, okay. So that historical context, I think, is important. But we have a lot to do today. It is Wednesday afternoon. I'm here at the church. My goal is to be here for the next, I don't know how many hours, doing live broadcast, talking about who knows what, doing Bible study exercise. I don't always know exactly where we're going, but I'm here. As always, feel free to contact me anytime this afternoon if there's something you want me to talk about. Theological question, a passage of scripture, whatever it may be, you can email me at newsif@yahoo.com, newsif@yahoo.com, or if you're listening to us live via the Spreaker app, you can hit the little chat icon and you can, offer anything you want. Questions, thoughts, perspectives, anything that you want. Now, I'm going to take a drink of water. There we go. My voice today is not quite, for some reason, it's having some difficulties today. So I'm a little worried. So I am taking a little time before we get in, just trying to let my voice warm up a little bit here, just trying to make sure I'm ready to go, because I would hate to get right into the middle of this and my voice is like, that's it, I'm done, I'm leaving. And I'm like, no, you can't leave because I need you. Stay with me. So I'm making sure that it's good to go. And not just that, I'm not very excited to be talking about what we're going to be talking about, because it's sad, it's frustrating, it's irritating, but I think there is a larger story here. I keep saying that I think there's a larger story here, and I'm going to once again try to bring us to the larger story that's below the surface. Everyone else is focused on this, and I think there's something else going below the surface, and I'm going to try to draw your attention to that. It will all make sense in just a minute. Are you ready? Here we go, all right? It all begins when the Southern Baptist Convention elects a new president. That new president is Ed Litton. It only takes just a little bit of time after he is elected as the new president of the Southern Baptist Convention for all of these accusations of plagiarism to start making their way around the internet. Some are calling it Sermongate. There's all kinds of different names they're giving it. But Ed Litton, it seems pretty obvious now. I don't think it's even speculation. I don't even think it's accusation. I think there's actual enough definitive proof that there's no question about it that Ed Litton plagiarized sermons from JD Greear. I mean, sermon after sermon, it appears he plagiarized. And when we say plagiarize, we're talking word for word, borrowing personal illustrations, borrowing even the same jokes, and he plagiarized. So the accusation starts spreading across the internet. There's all these videos where you can see the comparison where it'll show JD Greear preaching, it'll show Ed Litton preaching, and I mean, it's plagiarism. I mean, there's just no way to get around it. It has occurred. Now, you would think that this would rise to, a very, I guess it became a bigger issue than maybe in one way it became bigger than I thought it would be, right? Because it's made it all the way to national media. So I thought, okay, I didn't quite think it would go that far, but at the same time, I felt that if it went that far, well, then the Southern Baptist Convention would have to do something about it. And then something would be done. So in some ways, it went further than I thought. And then in other ways, it hasn't done much of anything. It's kind of like, okay, how far is this going to go? Well, is the national media going to care? Well, if the national media starts talking about it, well, then the Southern Baptist Convention is definitely going to have to start talking about it. So it's kind of been this weird mixed bag. In some ways, it's gone further than I thought. And in other ways, it's not gone very far at all. And I don't know what the Southern Baptist Convention plans to do. It appears it's just simply if a sermon gets pointed out that Ed Litton's plagiarized and that sermon is still on Ed Litton's church website, just delete it. Just delete it and it's all better. And it's like, well, you may have deleted it from the website, but there's people all across the internet who has the sermon, and then they're going to place it on YouTube demonstrating the plagiarism. So you're going to have to come up with a better solution than just deleting. So I don't know what the Southern Baptist is going to do, but the situation continues to grow. For example, we now have, this was put out on July the 12th, Ed Litton's latest plagiarism. Discovery involves a 1991 Tim Keller sermon on marriage. Now, Ed Litton and his wife preached a sermon on marriage, I think from Ephesians 5, and it looks like that he plagiarized Tim Keller's sermon. So at this point, it's starting to feel like that Ed Litton's entire ministry was just one of plagiarism, that basically Ed Litton's church was just a satellite church of JD Greear and, well, now Tim Keller. So, hey, Ed Litton's church, you were just a satellite church. Instead of, I don't even know why Ed Litton was your pastor. All you needed to do was just show videos of JD Greear, Tim Keller, and who knows how far this goes. But usually where there's smoke, there turns out to be fire. And so it continues. But I have stated now over and over and over, and I'm sorry I keep hitting and knocking things around. I keep saying over and over and over and over and over again that I think there is something bigger to this story. Because I definitely think plagiarism has occurred. And I am first and foremost, instead of just dragging people out back, stoning them, just ending their careers, I want more. What I want more than anything is genuine, yes, repentance, genuine restoration. But what I want repentance, I want restoration, but I want the pastors who get caught in these full-blown plagiarism scandals, I just want them to come forward and explain. Like, do you not believe it's wrong? Do you not think it's wrong? What were you thinking? Why were you relying on other people's sermons? Is it the pressure of the job? Did you just figure out that, it didn't matter, that who cares what I preach? Nobody really pays attention anyway. I want to know what they were thinking, because that to me is one level of this story that has to be discussed. I want the pastors who are caught plagiarizing just brutal honesty. This is what I was thinking. This is why I did it. I want to know, because it may open the door to some very important conversations that Christians and the church needs to have about pastors, their job, their role, what people expect, pastor burnout. I mean, pressure on pastors. Maybe it will give us insight into that. And so I would like to hear and I would like to know, but it doesn't appear that's going to occur because it just appears you get accused of plagiarism. Just don't say anything or offer the most generic apology possible. Say, well, I did borrow from, a little material and I had permission, but don't address every time another sermon comes out that you plagiarize. And don't address why you were using personal illustrations and the same jokes. I mean, come on. At some point, we just need an open, honest dialogue, and not for the purpose of stoning the heathen. It's because I really want to know what's going on. But there is another part of this story. So on one hand, I want to get below the surface and get to what was these pastors thinking. But there's something else that I think has to be addressed. If you find two pastors who preach the exact same sermon, I think the question that has to be asked is, where did the sermon originate from? Now, what we tend to do is like, okay, Pastor A preached it in, say, April of 2000. Pastor B preached the sermon in 2021. So the one who preached it first, that's the original sermon. The one who preached it later, that's the one who plagiarized. Where there's no question that the one who preached it later possibly, I shouldn't say there's no question. Then there's a very high probability that he plagiarized from the earlier sermon. But is it possible that both pastors purchased the same sermon, so one wasn't plagiarizing the other, but both of them have purchased a sermon from one of these sermon writing services, and they were preaching sermons that they purchased? In other words, we're going, here's Pastor B, here's Pastor A, B must have plagiarized from A, but is it possible that both of them got the sermon from another source? Or could it be possible that Pastor B plagiarized from Pastor A, but Pastor A actually bought his sermon? So what that person is plagiarizing is not plagiarizing the sermon of Pastor A, he's plagiarizing a sermon that Pastor A purchased. In other words, there's a deeper level to all of this, and the deeper level is there are websites, there are basically an industry out there now that's selling sermons for money. All right. And we've already talked about this, but now I've been trying to draw everyone's attention to this, going, we need to talk about this. We need to talk about pastors buying their sermons. Are churches okay with it? Are churches not okay with it? How should this be viewed? That's, to me, the bigger story. The bigger story, again, two parts. Why the pastors who are plagiarizing, why? And the second part, what about pastors who are purchasing their sermons? Who purchased it? Who plagiarized? Let me state it this way. I'll now throw in names here. Clearly, Ed Litton plagiarized from JD Greear. There's no question about it. But is it possible that JD Greear did not write his sermon, that JD Greear purchased his sermon, and then he preached a purchased sermon, and then Ed Litton plagiarized a purchased sermon? Is that possible? And remember, I raised that question. I said I wasn't making any accusations, but I was raising that question. Well, I have a news article today. Here we go. JD Greear admits to purchasing sermon material to make himself, and they have in quotes, look good. That's the headline. That's the accusation, that JD Greear now is admitted to purchasing sermon material to, as they put in quotes, to make himself, and then this part is in quotes, to look good. This has to be addressed. All right. Let's read some of this. All right. I think it's important. It comes from reformationcharlotte.org. In the midst of the exposure of the largest evangelical plagiarism scandal in modern times, it has become increasingly clear that the vast majority of the leadership in the evangelical world are frauds. From the newly elected Southern Baptist President Ed Litton, who has been criticized for his serial plagiarism of former President JD Greear, dating back as far as 2013, from what we have discovered, to JD Greear himself, nothing could be more clear than that God's judgment is on the Southern Baptist Convention. Okay, now that's their words. I'm not going to go there. I just know that there's something going on with plagiarism. Now, there's another part of this story that we haven't even got into. What about these pastors who supposedly write books or supposedly write a study Bible, and then it's demonstrated they didn't actually write it. They had a ghostwriter. They didn't actually put the study Bible together. The study Bible was put together by seminary faculty, and then that pastor just put his name on it. What about that? Look, there's a million issues going. Look, this is what happened. Christianity became a business. It became an industry, and there's something happening here, and I think we need to talk about it. So let's see what we can find out. Some astute watchdogs have uncovered that this scandal runs deep, far and wide. In an interview with Jim Osman that was published last night, Justin Peters revealed that many evangelical leaders have been purchasing sermons from a research group that prepares sermon materials for a wide range of evangelical pastors, regardless of doctrinal convictions. That research group is called Docent, Docent. And guess what? I've been mentioning that. I've been saying there's something going there. There's a deeper part to this. And here we are. Now other people are starting to catch on. All right. So we need to look at who pastors purchasing sermons, right or wrong. In other words, they purchase a sermon, they preach it as their own. And then you have to listen carefully, because many times in the preaching of a sermon that they purchased, those pastors may say something along these lines. This is something the Lord gave to me. This is something that's been on my heart. I've spent a lot of time studying this. Now we got a problem. Now we have a major problem. Okay. I was just watching a sermon today that was plagiarized from Mark Driscoll. And the pastor starts off by saying, I've spent a lot of hours in study and prayer for this. And I'm like, no, you stole it from Mark Driscoll. That's what you did. So why don't you just admit it? Okay, but all right. So now the Docent Group is starting to get some attention. According to Docent's website, the group partners with pastors to provide research assistance to lighten their load and help them serve their churches more effectively. Now, please note, lighten their load. What load are you lightening? Is a pastor supposed to look for someone to lighten the load of preparing sermons? Hey, I'm a pastor and I've got too much to do, so I need to find a way to lighten the load. And the first thing that I need to lighten is sermon prep, because that's the most insignificant thing I do, because I'm basically a CEO of a corporation. I'm a CEO of a business. I don't got time to be sitting in a studying God's word. I got things to do. We got to plan activities. We got to plan fellowships. I got to be kissing babies, shaking hands. I got to get my name out there. Right? Is that what has happened? I mean, that's just crazy. Obviously whoever's behind the Docent Group knows that the way they're going to market it is, hey, we're here to help you lighten your load. There's an issue here. All right, so they're going to lighten their load and help them serve their churches more effectively. Again, so as the pastor, how does a pastor serve the church? Isn't his primary function serving the church? And he's supposed to be a teacher, equipping the saints? It says, and according to the Docent website, and will assist with both sermon and sociological research, offering consultations with experienced ministry leaders and producing curriculum. Further, Docent will carefully pair graduate-level researchers with our clients based on theological compatibility, meaning Docent has no actual doctrinal convictions. They merely mold to fit whatever doctrine the church requesting their help requires. So, hey, you've got your theological background, you got your doctrine. Docent was like, okay, hey, who do we have here? Hey, Jim, what's your doctrinal background? Okay, Jim, you're Reformed. Well, here we go. We need someone to write some help with a Reformed church. Okay, hey, Bobby, okay, you're charismatic. Okay, we've got charismatic. Okay, what are you? I guess they just have a team of people, just point just point and say, we need you. Hey, we just need you. Bring them in. I don't even know. I don't even know what to say here. As Justin and Jim pointed out in their interview, this proves that these pastors would use this, that the pastors who use this service don't actually spend time exegeting the text and letting the text shape their own theology. Rather, they have presuppositions to the text, and this research group will prepare sermons from them based on their own doctrinal beliefs. It's why so many of these pastors have so little ability to actually defend what they preach. It has been exposed that many popular evangelicals use this service regularly. To name a few, an article at Patheos points out that this service has been used and endorsed by, and here's the name of the people they have here. They have Tim Keller, all right, Judd White, Tim Hawks, John Ortberg, okay, Ortberg, Mac Richard, Jarrett Stevens, Toby Slough, Slough. Are you ready for this one? Mark Driscoll, and of course, JD Greear. Now stop right here. Now this is where I was like, well, time out. Mark Driscoll, JD Greear. Now remember, there was a big scandal with a pastor who was plagiarizing Mark Driscoll. It turned into a big scandal. He was confronted, left the church. But was he actually plagiarizing from Mark Driscoll, or was he actually plagiarizing from Mark Driscoll, and Mark Driscoll was preaching a sermon that he had purchased from the Docent group? Was Ed Litton plagiarizing from JD Greear, or was he plagiarizing from a sermon that JD Greear purchased? These are very important questions. How far does this go? Again, everyone wants to talk about the plagiarism. I want to talk about pastors purchasing sermons to preach. Thumbs up, thumbs down, good or bad. Now, I've stated before, all of these services would not be out there if people were not purchasing. These services would not be operating unless people were using them. And again, if you're using them, the possibility of multiple people ending up with the exact same sermon has to be a high probability. JD Greear, though, has not only admitted that he used this service, but that he used it so that he can be lazy. Well, it still makes him look good. And a glowing endorsement that has now been removed, but is still available on a Wayback Machine archive. He writes, Docent has been a humongous help to me, saving me literally hours each week, improving the quality of my preaching dramatically. These guys are the real deal. I give them assignments and questions on everything from interpretation to cultural analysis to illustration, and they get me thorough answers always on time. They're outstanding scholars and really get my job as a communicator. I often have people remark to me, how many hours did you spend on that sermon? Well, where did you get time to do all of that research? Thanks, guys, for making me look so good. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? That almost implies that you're not going to tell the people, oh, I got this. Now, maybe he does tell the people, I got this from the Docent group, but it's the idea, make him look, it wouldn't make, if he's telling people where he got the content, it wouldn't be making him look good. So this is a glowing endorsement that basically straight up says, they do the research, they do the work, and I look good. Now, you have to understand, and this is where we have to be, this is where I have to be very careful. Always try to be very transparent with you. I'm sitting in a small church in the middle of nowhere, Texas. All right? A very small church with a very small handful of people, right? It's frustrating to realize that maybe the way to success as a pastor is have the right amount of charisma, the right personality, and buy your sermons. And then I wouldn't be pastoring a church in the middle of nowhere, Texas. I could be pastoring some large church making lots of money. If JD Greear is straight up admitting, and not only admitting, writing a glowing endorsement that they do all of the research and he looks good, and they really get him as a communicator. In other words, they do what he needs to make him look good as a communicator. A communicator, okay, you are a communicator. I will not deny that, but we are to be a preacher, a teacher. We're supposed to be standing in front of the people, dealing with the Word of God, walking through the text, working on the text. His work on the text is, you go do the research, you give it to me, I'll make sure it sounds good. I don't even know what to say. The article goes on. This aligns with Ed Litton, who has been plagiarizing JD Greear recently. This aligns with what Ed Litton, who has been plagiarizing JD Greear, recently said about his sermon prep. Litton admitted that he used to lie about his sermon prep, telling people that he took longer to prepare them than it actually did, and then laughing and joking about it. Justin Peters' interview with Osman on this is very good and well worth the time to watch. If this doesn't prove that the evangelical industrial complex is a quid pro scam, nothing will. It's time to treat these frauds like what they are. Call them to repent, and if they don't, purge them. And there is the story. Look, man, I'm trying to be calm here, but there are some questions. I want to know, here's what I want to know. How many pastors, okay, let's go through these. Here are the things I want to know. Here's the things that just I need answers to, all right? Are you ready? I want to know the pastors who buy their sermons, the pastors who plagiarize. I honestly want to know a heartfelt interview which just says, look, here's what's going on. Okay, you don't understand. When your church gets this big, here's your responsibilities. You're lucky if you're going to have any time to prepare a sermon. We need to hear that, because then maybe the megachurch structure needs to be blown up, and the megachurch structure needs to be burned to the ground, thrown in the trash, and we need to try a new approach. If the megachurch structure prohibits you from being able to actually be a pastor and prepare sermons, then that structure's got to go. We got to fix it. All right? So, but the only way we're really going to know what's going on is I need to hear. Are these people like, I'm a good communicator, but I can't write a sermon. I'm a good communicator, but I don't know how to exegete the text. I don't know how to study the text. Like, is there a flaw in seminaries and Bible colleges where people pay thousands of dollars to get supposedly an education, and they come out and they can't really actually write and exegete the text and write sermons and preach and actually create their own Bible study? I mean, I really want to know what's going on. All right, so that's number one. I just want the pastors who are plagiarizing, I don't want them publicly humiliated. I don't want them to be hung at midnight. I don't want that. I want understanding. And every pastor I think every pastor should want to know, but I think every church member, just, pastor, tell us what's going on. Like, I want to know the truth, because that's the only way we can fix this. Number two, we've got to get to how many pastors are purchasing sermons. If you've got a site like Docent and you've got, reviews, glowing reviews, which seems to indicate they use the service, unless that's a lie, but we're going to go with the idea that they use the service. You've got people like Mark Driscoll and JD Greear endorsing it. And JD Greear's endorsement just straight up acknowledges that, hey, I look really good. And people think asking how did you come up with all this time? Yeah. Hey, thanks for making me look good. Clearly indicating he doesn't even tell the people that he got the research from someone else. Now, of course, that's been deleted. Yeah, they're going to delete everything right now. All of these websites right now are probably running scared because now pastors are going to be afraid to purchase those sermons. So guess what? These websites are going to, those people are going to be out of work. So right now, they're going to delete anything and everything to not make them look bad. And I think a lot of pastors may be right now getting ready to start deleting their sermons. But I want to know how many are purchasing their sermons. And again, what led you to do this? Were you sitting in your office one day, sitting in your study, and I just don't know what to do. I cannot come up with a sermon. Look, I understand. Look, I can understand to some level. There have been times where I'm sitting there going, man, okay, I don't know what I'm going to do. And I may feel like a little bit of a panic. Just it may set in just for a second. I'm like, oh no, I don't know what I'm going to do. I'm not going to want to do. But usually give it 6 to 8 hours, 10 hours, 24 hours. And then I'm like, okay, wait a minute. I got too many things to do. So usually I can work through it, but I understand that initial feeling is scary. Like, oh boy, Sunday's going to be here. And I don't know what I'm going to do next. Or I don't know what I want to do this Sunday. Or wait, I need to change this up this Sunday. We're supposed to be in, Romans 8, but because of people gone or this, okay, we need to change it up. Oh man, what am I going to do? I understand that there's a little bit of fear right there because you got to stand in front of those people and you want to provide something. So I understand that fear, but man, if the fear overwhelms you, why wouldn't you just take something and say, listen, everyone, this week I'm going to be borrowing from a sermon here. I'm going to be relying heavily on this article. I'm going to be relying heavily on this. And then you rely heavily on it, but then you make it yours. Like, I don't know if you're allowed to do that in some of those big churches. I don't know. I don't understand. So, but we need to find out how many pastors are purchasing their sermons, and we need to get to the bottom of it. And I think there's a third question that nobody's asking yet. It's been asked recent. I think in the last maybe 4, 5, 6 months, at times the controversy started building and it went away. There was lots of questions about John MacArthur and the books that have his name on it. Did he write them? There's questions about MacArthur's study Bible. Did he actually write that? I mean, there's audio of him making claims of how many hours he spent, and there's other people making claims going, that's a lie. He didn't. What's the truth? If you're using a team of ghostwriters and they don't get the credit and your name's on it, you got to ask yourself, what's the motivation there? This is a big story, and we need to get to the bottom of it. We need to get to the bottom of it. But there you have it. I've been bringing this up. Hey, these sermon writing sites, they're out there, and someone's got to do something about this. In fact, let me see here. I think maybe there's a link here to. Wait, where is it? I think there's a link here to. Is it Patheos? No, that's not. Let's see. Okay, yeah. Now the Patheos article says, but by now, numerous websites and services exist to offer pastors canned sermons, complete with Bible verse studies and all. As just one example, Sermon Central offers not only basic sermons for free, but even study tools and royalty-free background images, illustrations, and movies that pastors can use as backdrops for their sermons. Of course, pastors can opt for a pro paid membership option that provides extras like live streaming. Their terms and conditions do not require pastors to include Sermon Central's copyright notice on electronic materials, and they also forbid reproduction online. But I don't see any requirement that members attribute them as a source while presenting their sermons live to audiences. So then there's Sermon Central that basically does not require that any attribution is made. Hey, you purchased it, you use it. And I'm looking here. And then now they have one particular sermon selling group that somehow has gotten caught up in the Ed Litton JD Greear plagiarism scandal is the docent research group. They seem to have a lot more. They seem to be a lot more intense than the average canned sermon site, billing themselves as a turnkey program producer for bigger name, bigger congregation churches. A turnkey program. Now, I know that phrase when I was in the military. We would go to a location that sometimes we refer to as a turnkey hospital where everything was in there and all we had to do was basically unlock everything, pull it off the shelf, and get it set up so that we could start bringing in wounded troops. We did this during Desert Storm, sent to a location, turnkey facility. Everything was ready for us to go, and we set it all up so that we could take more seriously injured troops who were injured on the front line, and then we could do surgical procedures, whatever, possibly send them back or send them on home, depending on what the situation was. So here they're like, hey, we're basically the turnkey sermon program. All you do is contact us, and basically you turn that key, and then, hey, there's everything you need for your sermon. Indeed, there are some pastors who have made endorsement videos for docent. You've got Tim Keller. You've got, and here they don't listen. Here we go. One evangelical writer, Grayson Gilbert, has found a slew of other names that docent used to parade around as testimonials to the value of their service. Mark Driscoll, then of Mars Hill. Docent has been invaluable to me. I think I've had them do nearly everything but cut my grass. All right. So Mark Driscoll, it appears when he was at Mars Hill, was using docent. He has them do everything but cut his grass. And Mark Driscoll rose to absolute prominence. He became a superstar that was getting his content a large part from the docent group. Now, again, I'm not saying he got fully written sermons. I'm saying they were helping put it together, right? I mean, again, who knows? I don't know what he ultimately took. I mean, we won't really know. We'd have to see what was purchased and then how does it show up. And then, of course, here it is, JD Greear. I often have people remark to me, how many hours did you spend on that sermon? Where did you get the time to do all that research? Thanks, guys, for making me look so good. Now, this person is claiming that they possibly have testimonials from Matt Chandler as well, but they could not verify this. All right? So we don't know if that's actually true or not. So just if you hear that, be careful. JD Greear's comment in particular makes it absolutely crystal clear that he does not attribute docent as the source of his information. However, to be fair, I've never heard of any pastors attributing sermons to anybody at all. Well, that's not fair because, maybe he hasn't heard, but I mean, anybody in my church has heard me constantly attribute, I got it from this. So there are pastors out there who do that, but maybe they don't. Okay, this article has a lot of information. This one has a lot. We could work through this. It would take hours to work through this, but wow. That's all I can say. I'm at a loss for words. Okay, well, maybe if I will purchase my words from someone else, then I wouldn't be at a loss for words. Maybe if I purchase my words from someone else, I would be a better communicator. Maybe if I purchase my words from someone else, I would have a bigger podcast audience. Maybe I need to purchase if I purchase my words, I'd be a pastor of a bigger church. I just don't get it. So let's go through the issues again, okay? I think this is... There's so many issues here. Again, I want to just know, pastors who've caught plagiarizing, just can we just come clean and let me understand? Number two, the ones purchasing their sermons, what are you purchasing? Show us what you're getting. Show us how it works. Do a YouTube video going, okay, guys, here's the thing. I've been identified as someone who's plagiarized. I've been identified as someone who buys sermons. Let me show you here on video what I purchase. here's what it looks like, right? You see, this is what came in for this sermon. Look at it, all right? Here, and then here's my sermon. Now you go look and you see, and I know I did not attribute to anything, and you can tell me what you think. I mean, wouldn't that be so wonderful so that we could really understand how deep this goes? And then number 3, we need to get to the bottom of Christian ghostwriters. So, their names are on books and they didn't write books. They didn't write the book. And if they didn't write the book, why is their name on it? If they didn't write the study Bible, why is their name on it? That just turns Christianity into a business where you're promoting celebrity. You're selling celebrity. Yeah, there's a lot going on here. But I wanted to bring all of this to everyone's attention today because we've been talking about it, and I think it just really advances the story. And there we go. All right. Okay, I hope that was beneficial. I do. I apologize for the rough start. I was having some major issues with my voice. I was starting to worry there for a second. I literally almost stopped at one point and was just going to stop the live broadcast completely and just delete it. But I didn't know how many people were listening to me live, so I was afraid to stop in the middle. But I literally was just going to hit the stop button and delete. I was having some serious problems there. So my voice now is better off. So hopefully now everything else I do today will be better. Now, I'm going to go back and listen to the beginning of this, and I may delete it. I'm just going to have to do it really quick. So I'm going to go listen, and if I need to delete it, well, then this disappears, and it'll never be heard by anyone ever again. So if you're listening to me live, you got it. Nobody else may ever hear this because I know I was having some serious problems there at the beginning, but hopefully this was beneficial. And we need to, I'm not here to yell and scream at people or, I'm not here to yell and scream at these people or condemn these people. I'm just here to go, we've got a problem here. And it says a lot about the church, about what the expectations are, about pastors, what their jobs actually are. And I think every church, every pastor, we need to ask ourselves some tough questions. And I hope the scandal leads to that, but I'm afraid the scandal is not going to lead anywhere. And everyone's just going to kind of cover everything up, and everyone's just going to move on. So we'll see what happens to all these sermon writing sites. We'll see if all these sermon writing sites disappear, or they start now making it that you have to give attribution, and then it'll be interesting to see how many pastors don't actually do that. Then what happens to them? Do they get in trouble? Nobody's ever going to care. So yeah, we got a lot of questions. All right, I'll stop right there. You can email me at newsif@yahoo.com, newsif@yahoo.com. Thanks for listening. God bless.